Hello and welcome. You're watching DD India's budget special on a day when India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has given a major boost to the middle class with several reformative steps to spur more growth in the world's fastest growing major economy. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran.
And I'm Gautam Roy. The budget has come at a time when the Indian economy is being projected to grow at a 6 to 7% rate in the next financial year by most financial institutions. It is not only expected to boost consumption but also spur small to large scale industrial activity, R&D, innovation and entrepreneurship. We'll be talking about it extensively with our expert guests during this show. But first, the top stories.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announces a major relief for the middle class. No income tax up to rupees 12 lakh under the new tax regime.
There will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
A new income tax bill, a direct tax code meant to simplify compliance for individual taxpayers, will be introduced next week in India's Parliament.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauds 2025 budget as People's Budget, says it will give momentum to making the country self-reliant.
And captains of the industry hail the budget, dub it as a game changer focused on the middle class, MSMEs, investments and jobs.
So India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget 2025, marking a record 8th consecutive presentation.
Yes, focusing on the middle class, she announced zero income tax up to 1.2 million, that is 12 lakh Indian rupees. The budget highlights structural reforms across 6 key sectors, boosting growth and global competitiveness.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget 2025 in the lower house of the Indian Parliament, marking a significant milestone with a record 8th consecutive budget presentation. Focusing on the country's middle class, the Finance Minister stated that the new tax regime will substantially reduce taxes for the middle class as no income tax will be payable on income up to 12 lakh rupees.
In recognition of their contribution, we have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
In a speech, the minister asserted that the Indian economy is the fastest growing among all developing economies. She noted that the Indian development track record over the past decade and its structural reforms have drawn global attention.
Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions.
The minister said that the proposed development measures in the budget of 2025 spans 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, the poor, Yuva, the youth, Annadata, the farmers, and Nari, women.
Spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy, and innovation.
On MSMEs, Nirmala Sitharaman said that these enterprises are responsible for 45% of India's exports. She announced that the investment and turnover limits for the classification of all MSMEs will be enhanced to 2.5 times and 2 times respectively to boost their confidence, support growth, and generate employment opportunities for the youth.
With their quality products, these MSMEs are responsible for 45% of our exports. To help them achieve higher efficiencies of scale, technological upgradation, and better access to capital, the investment and turnover limits for classification of all MSMEs will be enhanced to 2.5 and 2 times respectively.
While discussing the expansion of medical education, the finance minister announced that 10,000 additional seats will be created in medical colleges and hospitals as part of the goal to create 75,000 new seats for the next 5 years. Additionally, she proposed adding 36 life-saving drugs and medicines to the list of items fully exempted from basic custom duty. Bureau Report, GD India.
India's Union Budget 2025 presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has been widely praised for prioritizing inclusive growth.
Yes, leaders across the government, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, have expressed strong support, calling it a budget that addresses the needs of all sections of society.
India's Union Budget 2025, presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, has been applauded for its focus on inclusive growth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the Union Budget, saying it fulfills the dreams of the common people.
मैं वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस जनता जनार्दन का बजट, पीपल्स का बजट, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। साथियों, आमतौर पर बजट का फोकस इस बात पर रहता है कि सरकार का खजाना कैसे भरेगा, लेकिन ये बजट उससे बिल्कुल उल्टा है। लेकिन ये बजट देश के नागरिकों की जेब कैसे भरेगी, देश के नागरिकों की बचत कैसे बढ़ेगी और देश के नागरिक विकास के भागीदार कैसे बनेंगे, ये बजट इसकी एक बहुत मजबूत नींव रखता है।
India's Minister for Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, said that no one could have imagined the income tax exemption limit rising to 12 lakh rupees, calling the budget a boon for the middle class.
ये मध्यम वर्ग के लिए वरदान है। कोई कल्पना नहीं करता था कि इनकम टैक्स में छूट की सीमा 12 लाख रुपए तक हो जाएगी, और इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद वित्त मंत्री जी को और विशेषकर प्रधानमंत्री जी को।
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh lauded the budget, saying that this budget reflects the concerns of all sections of society.
यह बजट युवा, गरीब, किसान, नारी और समाज के सभी वर्गों और सेक्टर्स के विकास को बढ़ावा देने वाला है, और खासकर मिडिल क्लास के कंट्रीब्यूशन को यह रिकॉग्नाइज करते हुए यह बजट, यदि यह कहा जाए कि अपने में अभूतपूर्व है, तो यह कहना अतिशयोक्ति नहीं होगी।
India's Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, highlighted the continued priority given to infrastructure, particularly in the road sector.
ये जो बजट की विशेषता ये है कि हमारी इकोनॉमी को एक्सेलरेट करने वाला ये बजट है। जहां तक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को हर समय वित्त मंत्री प्राथमिकता देते हैं, इस समय भी हमारा बजट बढ़ा है, जिसके कारण इंफ्रा रोड सेक्टर में इसका बहुत बड़ा फायदा होगा।
Leaders have largely expressed satisfaction with the Union Budget 2025, which introduces transformative measures with key provisions of tax relief for the middle class and a focus on enhancing India's agricultural ecosystem. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, joining us are three very special guests. Joining us this moment are Dr. Charan Singh, economist and CEO of eGrow, Dr. Amit Kapoor, economist, and columnist Subimal Bhattacharjee. Dr. Singh, if I can start with you, how would you characterize or describe the budget? Did it tick all the right boxes for you?
Oh, fantastic budget, fantastic. I would not have expected a better budget than this.
Why do you say
Firstly,
that?
the income tax slab which you mentioned, just imagine the 12 lakh limit is a fantastic limit. And then if you look at various things in the budget, the way it has gone about, firstly it provides continuity in terms of what does it cater to, takes care of the youth, takes care of the women, takes care of the farmer, and now takes care of the poor as well as middle class. And middle class is not that something, of course, I have been saying that there has been some consumption dent up there, and with this 12 lakh thing that's going to take care. Also, please also remember, we economists have been struggling how to call Viksit Bharat. How would you achieve the limit, threshold limit of an advanced economy of $14,000, where we are just about $2,500 now. But this budget gives you a clean definition of what the government means by Viksit Bharat. We economists have really benefited from that. So they are saying they want zero poverty, they want skilled 100% deployment. For women, they want 70% deployment. They want high quality education system, farmers making good food basket for the world, as well as I think all this put together, healthcare, all this put together defines in a 360 way what Viksit Bharat is. The definition is superb. And then the 10 points on which it says it wants to now carry it out, say MSMEs, or say agriculture sector where you have various schemes which have been announced, on shipbuilding, take anything. Means I have a feeling that this budget is a balanced budget. Over and above this, please remember, this is a slap on the face of rating agencies who always question India and its policy makers. Please remember the glide path continues and the correction on gross fiscal deficit is taking place. Capital expenditure is positive, very well done. The overall, if you look at the overall expenditure pattern, the quality of expenditure has improved. So the tax revenue, of course, the buoyancy is there, which has been explained in the budget speech, as well as in the interview which she gave, the press conference which they gave. The buoyancy is also being conservatively estimated. The exports also taken care. So where would you find a problem in this budget? I also like the way they spoke about investing in people, economy and innovation. And they're also speaking about, and I thought that was very, very good, building rural prosperity and resilience. Agriculture sector has also been focused on, and then nurturing innovation. You know what has happened in the artificial intelligence warfare between America and China, and now they are going to be giving in the Excellence Center for Artificial Intelligence and Innovation, allocating resources. So to my mind, the Amrit Kal budget for India at 2047, this is the right fit. And if year after year, we have a budget positioned exactly like this, taking care of the vulnerable sections and also following the 10 pattern formula, that how are we going to really make them all grow, I think you have done it. It is, we are walking the track very carefully, you walking the talk.
Okay.
So I was very...
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Amit Kapoor here as well and get his perspective. Dr. Kapoor, I guess the biggest objective here, or the large-scale objective here, is to spur growth, which is right now the numbers are not as as encouraging as they were some years back, because we're growing around 6.3 to 6.8%. That's the projection for next year, for the coming financial year for which the budget is. Do you think the steps that have been taken are enough to ensure that India returns to that high rate of growth path that it was on earlier, which it needs to get to that goal of becoming a developed nation by 2047?
So Gautam, we have to answer this question very carefully, because when you say that 6.8% growth, India definitively will grow at 6.8%, but we need to realize that there are severe global headwinds that are going right now. And given those circumstances, especially the wars that have been actually happening, the whole uncertainty on oil prices because of the war, and there are those leftover effects of the pandemic that are coming through. But given that, and the headwinds coming in from how the American policy will shape, given those set of circumstances, I think when India is growing at about 6.8%, I think that's a commendable job. If you really ask me, I don't think India will sustain 6.8% because of the given budget, because the way the government has actually focused on the idea of productivity growth, it will start touching close to about 8% or over 8% over the next 2 to 3 year platform. Because if you really look at the historical antecedents, the budget is a clear reflection of the path that the government has been taking over the last 10 or 12 years, because they've had that continuity in thinking. But from a larger point of view, from a competitiveness viewpoint, improving productivity viewpoint, I think there are 2 or 3 things which are exceedingly important that are reflected within the budget. One is that when you talk about, say, competitiveness, it's about improving the quality of life of people, improving economic benefits to or economic progress of the country. And the budget looks at both of those aspects. And as Charan Singh ji was also saying, that this is a very balanced budget, because the moment you are saying that you're going to have increased spends on health, that means you're trying to recognize the fact that yes, India is needing that health infrastructure, you're going to increase the medical seats, etc. But the most important factor from a comparative news viewpoint and the future viewpoint, the education budget and the scientific department's budget, if you really look at it together, this is a significant chunk that you're really talking about. This is roughly close to about 1,80,000 crores, which is close to about $200 billion kind of a situation. That's a huge amount given what India needs. So you are talking about improving the quality of your skilling, quality of your labor, and that would actually give you a better benefit over a period of time. And similarly, I think there is a larger thinking as I see within this budget, and that is that if India wants to be an innovation-driven economy, and how do we really tackle or push forth the innovation engine? This is where you're talking about our tinkering labs. I am so absolutely positive on that, because the future lies with the younger generation, and what the government is trying to do here is that focus on that youth and try to enable them to actually innovate and move forward. And you cannot ignore the fact that given the kind of AI developments that are happening, the government has also announced that there would be an AI mission. So you are spending 500 crores. Of course, from my point of view, that is fairly less amount of money, but the private sector should pull in. The government has done its part here, but I think the corporate sector will have to do its part now. Because, when we talk about the budget, everything seems to be, government has to do everything. No, I think this is where the responsibility of the corporations also become very, very clear, that you have to move towards innovation, value capture, value-driven strategies, and that is what you would have to look at. Government has done its bit. In fact, the other thing which I feel is very important from an economic and social progress point of view is the kind of focus that you're having on rural development. There is a clear understanding that India is urban as well as rural. And you are talking about a rural development budget, which is close to about 2,66,000 crores. The urban development budget is close to about 97,000 crores. You are recognizing that both these are going to be the engines of growth. Urbanization is going to be important. You are continuing with certain set of things there. And then when you talk about competitiveness as well, it's about movement of land, labor, capital, etc. And all those things have got enhanced over a period of time. Infrastructure will enable it. You're talking about financial instruments which could be beneficial for the MSMEs, and that is where it is. I don't think we could have asked for more. Just as an academic, I would like to say that, okay, if I have to score it on a scale of 10, I'll possibly give it a 9, because maybe there is something that was possibly left out. But I think overall, a fairly great budget for the future of the country.
Fair enough. 9 on 10, says Dr. Kapoor. Mr. Bhattacharya, let me get you in on the discussion. Now, Dr. Kapoor referred to AI. So let me ask you this. As someone who has an abiding interest in all things IT, what did you make of the budget's focus on issues such as deep tech, expanding the capacity of IITs and other institutions, startups, entrepreneurship, and also this focus on nuclear energy? We are told, and correct me if I'm wrong, AI is an energy guzzler.
Mr. Ramachandran, thank you for bringing me in. I think this budget is very clear about the focus on technology. And this is not any knee-jerk reaction to what has been happening in the last few days around the DeepSeek's impact all around the globe. So a larger part of the whole effort of the government in the last 10 years has been to see how much of technology you bring in governance. How do you get your startup ecosystem running around technology? And how do you look to the forward and build the strengths within the country in terms of Atmanirbharta, where technology gets into many various sectors? So I think, as you mentioned those areas, in almost every area the budget has made a focus. The budget allocation for the Indian AI mission, the allocation for cybersecurity, under CERT, the focus on looking at the modified program for the development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystem, getting the semiconductor fabs in India, the modification in that. So I think the focus is very, very clear. Maybe the budget allocation would be far much more in terms of expectation from the industry. But I would also go by my previous panelist saying that even the private sector has to come and put in money, when such kind of wider support is being provided from the government in terms of policy and a very clear direction that all areas of technology find attention. So I think this is a very good budget from that perspective, that the direction is very, very clear. The focus on skilling is there. The focus on getting the Atal Tinkering Labs to much larger numbers is there across the country. The Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence for Education, all three of them getting good outlays, maybe even more outlay will come in as a need be. And the whole purpose of the national cause of getting into the bandwagon of all technology in all areas, so that ultimately getting the people's budget activated, I think that has been seen. So I would be very, very happy to see that while the government provides the support, the private sector also comes in, the investments come in, the startups do a far much more optimal job. There is no reason that we would be left behind in the tech sector, because this sector is growing at such a pace that even the large players globally are also now under certain kind of recalibrations, and that's the point of time where we have the strength and resources within the country. So if they are channelized well, possibly we are in a far much better position in the coming period of time.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Singh on that topic of the tax relief that has been given. Particularly, it's being said to be aimed at the middle class. Dr. Singh, to what extent do you think that this will be a relief, not just for the middle class, but for the economy as a whole? Because there is a certain amount of presumption that all the revenue that the government is foregoing, about 1.1 lakh crores, will be spent, and which is why you see stocks of consumer-oriented companies and auto companies, perhaps some of them two-wheelers, going up today. But will it all be driven towards spending more, or will the middle class want to save more as well at the same time? And in any case, there aren't too many taxpayers in India. About 1.6% people paid taxes, direct taxes in 2023. So what sort of an impact could it have on economic activity as a whole in the country, domestic economic activity?
So, before I answer your question, if you permit me, I just want to strike a continuity with my previous answer and what was made by Amit. See, the point I want to make is we are growing around 6.4% in the current year. We are aiming at 6.3 to 6.8 in the next year. The budget documents assume a growth rate of 10.1%, I think, which is a reasonable good. But I think we'll do much more than that. That's my feeling. My feeling is because, yes, at this point of time when the projections are being made and when the Trump administration is just settling in, there seems to be immense uncertainty in the world. Not only we, the Fed Reserve itself said that they are very uncertain about what's going to happen to tariffs, what's going to happen to immigration, their fiscal policy and all that. In these circumstances, making a budget which is this size. I also would like to mention, given our tax collection, which is about 17% of GDP, lowest amongst major countries, America is 35%, Sweden is around 40%. Given our tax to GDP ratio, whatever best we could do, we have done it. We are walking the talk. This is the best we could do. And in these circumstances, credit and congratulations to the finance minister and her team who have really put all this in order. Now, in these circumstances, because there has been a little setback, the second quarter recorded a growth of 5.4% in GDP, disappointing all of us. Something had to be done. When you looked at the reasons given were that the middle class is suffering and therefore consumption is not taking place. Because consumption is not taking place, production is not taking place. Now what have they done? They have exactly targeted and tackled that issue. By providing this relief to the middle class, they are saving them 80,000 rupees. Moment they save them 80,000 rupees, what could happen? As you mentioned, they could probably spend it. They could spend it on children's education, on health, on food, on protein diet, on traveling. They could spend it. If it's spent, it enters the cycle of growth. So you will have to have more manufacturing. Demand has been generated. More manufacturing, the economy starts rolling. Suppose they save it. Moment they save it, it will come into the banking system. Again, the banks are going to invest it in infrastructure. So the cycle continues. So to my mind, what is going to happen? The tax foregone is 1 lakh crore. But no, it's not going to give back the system it's going to give much more than 1 lakh crore. Okay. The reason, once the production starts, manufacturing starts, on the other hand, you are constantly giving a push to the economy through your capital expenditure, which is increasing. That's going to crowd it in. The demand is increasing. The private sector is going to get incentivized to come and now produce. So the multiplier effect of this enhanced tax slab or the tax foregone is going to be much more than what we are anticipating. This multiplier effect will not only increase growth, it will also increase employment, as I mentioned, and it should take the growth figure to much more than 6.8%. Which are the categories, which are the industries which could benefit? To my mind, directly, it will benefit the MSMEs. Because moment it benefits the MSMEs, as the FM also mentioned in a speech, MSMEs have such beautiful forward-backward linkages in our country, there are about 6 crore of them. They account for a massive chunk of production and export. All this then starts moving. Moment you say that we are going to push our MSMEs to a great extent, you have sustained further demand. So the cycle starts. That's how I am looking at it.
Right, Dr. Kapoor, if I may build on Dr. Singh's argument there, what struck me in particular was the manner in which Minister Sitaraman categorically said at the beginning of a news conference this afternoon, if I can paraphrase her, she said it's not as if there is no thirst for capex. She says there's been no reduction in capex. How do you think she's walked this fine balance between capex and consumption? You think she's betting on consumption in the near term?
So I think I have to go back to what Charan Singh was saying, like the multiplier of the tax foregone. Because when we're talking about the multiplier, the minimum multiplier on consumption is at least 3 times. So that means we talk about direct, indirect, or induced impact. It is going to be at least 3 times of tax collection, additive tax collection in terms of GST from what has actually been foregone. So that means there is absolutely no way that this is going to have a detrimental impact on the spends or the capital expenditure that the government was actually looking at doing. Rather, it is a very positive thing to do, because if you really look at it, as India improves its sophistication of demand, it means that you are going to ask for more or better products. MSMEs will become more innovative. They'll start trying to give better products to the country. And that is what is going to drive innovation, capacity building, job creation, and so on and so forth. So if you really look at it overall, I really don't think that it is a balance. I think it's a very, very smart economic strategy to really follow. I think hats off to the finance minister, and especially say Anand Nageshwaran as well. He's actually talked about all these things in the economic survey as well, wherein he says that it has to be people centric. We have to move people around. And when you talk about those 4 pillars, like that was poor, youth, farmers, and women, all of them benefit with these set of what I call tax slab cuts that you're actually seeing. Because if you really look at a simple additive thing here, it is phenomenal. And I think there are going to be various sectors, especially if you talk about FMCG products. If you really talk about travel, if you talk about tourism, people will start spending money on this. And there is, and on this itself, if you really look at it, the government has also announced tourism hubs within the country as well. So if you really look at the kind of activities that will spawn out of this in the local regions, in terms of say local tourism hubs or local tourism destinations, to what it does to those nearby districts. A very simple example I must share here. When you talk about a place like say Prayagraj, the per capita income for Prayagraj is close to about 55,000 rupees as of now. But what does Kumbh do to the economic activity out there is something very phenomenal. It does it to Chitrakoot as well, it does it to Ayodhya. So what we are seeing is that those multipliers will see. Kevadia is a great example of how multiplier efforts or effects happen when people start spending on tourism. That place has created close to about 40,000 jobs, 100,000 people visit that location every day, and so on and so forth. So I think overall, this is a phenomenal exercise, a very smart economic strategy for the long term. And I think this should continue. I would rather think that, like this slab might even get rationalized as we go further and as we grow economically.
Right. And Shubhamal, do you see this sort of a multiplier coming into play where India's tech advancement is also concerned, particularly when you talk about spending money in schools to boost the broadband network or in Atal tinkering labs? Do you think that coming into play in the coming years? It might not be immediate, but it will come in by the time we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the wider canvas that is laid out clearly demonstrates an opportunity where there is a cascading activity in on all the ancillary or the surrounding areas. Now, when you are looking at giving 10,000 more fellowships in IIT and the IISc, or even looking at a kind of fund of funds for startups and everything, and so for that you require more skilling efforts to be undertaking. The moment you take the skilling efforts, then you'll be requiring more number of teachers and capable people to do the training. Look at more models and softwares and all kinds of teaching tools. So I think in many areas you basically go and hit and at the same time improve. See, we are at a point of time where the nation is taking off on many fronts. We realize very clearly that in all these strategic areas we have to build our own strength. Whether it is AI in defense, whether it is AI in agricultural capability building, I think in all of that we are now very clear that we'll have to build up our own stories. The defense story in the last few years has been very successful. It's a very long game, but even in that short period of time, what we have been able to do is we have been able to generate a lot of MSMEs in the sector that are now providing in tier 2 and tier 1 in a few cases the supplies. Secondly, we are able to get into the export horizon. Defense exports from India was almost zero when Prime Minister Modi took over. Today we are significantly exporting and also. And in most areas of defense today, the infusion of technology is taking the capability of the weapons as well as the equipment to different levels, and all of that you require skills that are more or less around the digital technology. So each and every aspect, Gautam, we are touching in some way or the other, and that has this cascading effect across sectors. So somewhere we might be visibly seeing a great success story manifested, but in the larger part as a nation, we are building up capabilities to go in many directions. With all the strategic fight now going on the artificial domain and the large language models that are coming up to be able to give the force multiplier effect, I think that's also something that we have already, shown our not only intent but actually announced with funding and now the announcement about more than 18,000 GPUs available for us. So in the next few years, we are going to go hammer and tong in quite a big way in terms of not only boosting the skills but also getting our own models in place to be able to support any kind of R&D activity and put it to manufacturing, production, co-production, all of that stuff. Parallelly, we are also doing all our efforts about partnerships, whether it is the US or France or even Russia and all strategic areas of defense. We have those partnerships also where in many cases we are also getting transfer of technology, but at the same time, because now as a policy we force them to do co-production in India and all, we are also building up our local capabilities and at the same time getting newer skills into the system. So the young population that we have, the 65% of the population before 35 years who are aspiring, for good jobs and everything, I think we are also little by little but very steadily getting the skilling required for being able to get them gainful employment. So all of these things, I think in the larger story, builds up a great national picture which will build up our capabilities far much than we would have anticipated even a decade back.
All right, Mr. Bhattacharjee, Dr. Singh, Dr. Kapoor, do stay on. We'll come back to you momentarily. Let me pull up some more news for our viewers. Now, in response to the Budget 2025, industry stalwarts have expressed optimism about the government's tax cut plans, anticipating a boost in disposable income and consumer spending.
Oh yes, executives from automotive and consumer sectors particularly believe that these measures will stimulate economic growth. Here are some of those reactions.
The Union Budget 2025-26 has been hailed as a game changer, reinforcing the vision of a developed India with a sharp focus on the middle class, MSMEs, private investments, and job creation.
They have given a fabulous budget. They have given money in the hands of middle class, which was the need of the hour. I think this will help in boosting the overall GDP growth rate of the country.
The budget's increased allocation for food processing has drawn praise, recognizing its crucial role in boosting farm incomes and employment.
Setting up the Institute for Food Processing is a good positive move. Having export missions to identify crops for export is a good thing.
Business leaders have praised the increased allocation for green energy in Budget 2025. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has raised the allocation for new and renewable energy in budget for 2025-26 by 9,251 crore rupees to 26,549 crore rupees.
When it comes to the core sector and sectors like green and sustainable energy, I think there's a very interesting thing she's talked about, which is improving the grid infrastructure and supporting that, and also for the DISCOMs, to get more funding and financing into that sector. So I think with T&D improving, that allows for more uptake of green energy into the national grid.
The government has also introduced a comprehensive clean tech manufacturing support program, exempting customs duty on 35 capital goods for EV battery productions, while boosting domestic manufacturing of key EV components, a move welcomed by industry leaders.
This budget is a commendable step as an enabler towards notable push towards clean tech and EV growth, as highlighted by the Honorable FM.
Meanwhile, the surge in the capital expenditure allocation is expected to have a multiple effect on the economy, further driving growth and investment.
Capex has the multiplier effect, so we are quite happy that the government is continuing with that journey of focusing on the Capex.
With the strategic focus on infrastructure, sustainability, and industry, Budget 2025-26 sets the stage for long-term economic transformation. Bureau Report, DD India.
So the industry hunches are pretty upbeat about the prospects of their businesses following this budget. We'll be talking about how things are going to be impacted through this budget later on our show as well. We're taking a quick break and thanking our guests for the moment, Dr. Charan Singh, CEO eGrow, as well as Dr. Amit Kapoor, senior economist, and Shubha Bhattacharya as well, noted IT expert and columnist. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back very quickly. Stay with us.
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
मेरा सेविंग्स अकाउंट ओपन हो गया और बैंक भी जाना नहीं पड़ा।
Really? तू जानता है इसका बैंक कौन है?
कौन है सर?
SBI. Open digital savings account using video KYC. इसे कहते हैं सॉलिड बैंक की सॉलिड बैकिंग।
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। लेकिन बिजनेस शुरू हो गया तो इन दोनों कौन संभालेगा?
मम्मी, तुम बिजनेस संभालो, रोहन को मैं संभाल लूंगी।
बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
Got it.
सोचिए, अगर असल जिंदगी में ऐसी हालत हो तो कितनी मुश्किलें होती हैं, लेकिन शुक्र है बैंकिंग के लिए नहीं। अगर आपकी उम्र 70 साल से अधिक हो या आप दिव्यांग हो तो बैंक आपको कुछ जरूरी बैंकिंग सुविधाएं घर बैठे बैठे दे सकता है। RBI कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. For the middle class, the budget had tax relief in store, but how much will you be exactly saving? Our next report has all the details.
With no income tax payable on earning up to Rs 12 lakh per annum in the new income tax regime, the budget has come as a major boost for India's aspirational and growing middle class. The limit will be Rs 12.75 lakh for salaried taxpayers, taking into account the standard deduction, which is Rs 75,000. Earlier, the threshold for nil tax was Rs 7 lakh.
That the rates are far lesser than the rates which are prevailing as of today.
So one with the simplification, rate reduction, and also a smooth flow of rate without any jumps, and higher incomes also coming into the lower slab. So the benefit of this income tax reduction that we've done are not just in saying up to a certain income you will pay no tax, but across the board for all incomes the rate is brought down.
Yes. The budget has also proposed new tax slabs. There's no tax for annual income between 0 to 4 lakh. For income between rupees 4 to 8 lakh, it's 5%. For rupees 8 to 12 lakh, it's 10%. For 12 to 16 lakh, it's 15%. For 16 to 20 lakh, it's 20%. For 20 to 24 lakh, it's 25%, while those earning above 24 lakh will have to pay 30% tax. So why does the budget have tax slabs for those earning between 4 to 12 lakh? So why does the budget has tax slabs for those earning between rupees 4 to 12 lakh? This means that an individual earning up to rupees 12 lakh would have a tax liability, but the amount will get completely offset by the rebate. Here's the amount taxpayers will be saving now. Those with an annual income of rupees 8 lakh will get total tax benefit of rupees 30,000. For 9 lakh, the amount is 40,000. For 10 lakh, it's 50,000. For 11 lakh, it's 65,000. For 12 lakh, it's 80,000. An individual with an earning of up to rupees 24 lakh will get a tax benefit of rupees 1.1 lakh. Industry leaders have welcomed the tax relief, saying that it will lead to rise in consumer spending.
This will give money to the hands of the middle class, increase consumption.
The tax relief will also boost household consumption and savings. Bureau Report, DD India.
So we've been talking about this for quite some time, and there is enough reason to talk about it even further, because we have two special guests on the show now in this evening. We have India's two top taxmen. We've got Ravi Agarwal, Chairman CBDT, that's the Central Board for Direct Taxes, and we also have Sajay Kumar Agarwal, Chairperson CBIC, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Welcome to you both. Mr. Ravi Agarwal, if I could come to you first. Now, in terms of the direct taxes, there's a relief being given, particularly to the middle class. But just explain to us, how does it really work for almost everyone, so that the old tax regime, in a way, could become redundant if it's not completely phased out by the government itself through this new income tax bill that will come in?
Yeah, so first, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. First, I'll talk about the new tax regime and the slab rates that have been introduced through this finance bill. So as was being mentioned earlier, the new tax slabs are 4 to 8 lakhs is 5%, 0 to 4 it's 0, 4 to 8 is 5%, 8 to 12 it is 10%, and so on. A new tax slab of 25% has also been introduced for income between 20 lakhs to 24 lakhs, and 24 lakh onwards it's 30%. So to 24 lakhs? Because 2 lakhs per month, a person who is deriving an income of 2 lakhs per month, till that slab or income, the tax slab has been reduced. Now, as has been already announced, for income up to 12 lakhs, the tax liability now is 0, and that's a combination of the change in the tax slabs as also the rebate that is being given.
And you add the standard deduction, so it becomes 12.75 per annum.
No, so it's that 75,000 is standard deduction for the salaried class.
Okay.
Even if it is not salaried, the individual is earning income which is other than salary.
That's 12
and the
still.
income is say 12 lakhs. Then the person would not be liable to pay any income tax. Now, if you calculate this 12 lakh tax liability otherwise through the tax slabs, what one would find is that the income which is coming is the tax that is coming is 60,000. Now, through the rebate, this 60,000 is being reduced to 0. So therefore, for a person who is otherwise, if you actually calculate his liability through the tax slab, would have been 60,000, but a rebate of 60,000 is 60 minus 60 is equal to 0.
Right.
So that's how that person who is deriving an income of 12 lakhs, combination of slab as well as the rebate, ultimately the tax liability becomes zero.
Could you clarify one belief that people seem to be having, that the moment you cross the 12 lakh threshold, suddenly you get a tax liability? Before that you have nothing.
Yes.
So if I get an increment tomorrow and I'm earning below 12 lakh, but suddenly I'm above 12 lakh the next day, I have a tax liability?
No, so that's what. So basically it is not a quantum jump. We give what has been proposed, and that was earlier also in the Act, a concept of a marginal relief.
Okay.
So the marginal relief is such, for example, you have an income of say 12 lakh 50,000. Right? So you calculate the tax on 12 lakh 50,000. If you see the slabs on 12 lakh 50,000, otherwise the income would have been tax liability would have been 67,500. So naturally a taxpayer would ask, well, I have earned only 50,000 more than 12 lakhs, and here I am being fastened with a liability of 67,500, which is more than 50,000. So here, through marginal relief, the tax would be only 50,000.
Okay.
So this 67,500, which was otherwise being computed through the tax slab, the person gets a relief benefit, and it's only 50,000, which is over and above 12 lakhs. That is what the person is supposed to pay. Now this, if you calculate till 12 lakh 75,000, this thing remains, because at 12 lakh 75,000, the tax liability as per tax slab is 71,250. Right? And so that gets offset. So therefore, beyond 12 lakh 75,000, then there is no marginal relief. And the tax liability then.
So would you say with these changes now everybody, no matter how much you earn, will feel that the new tax regime is better than the old one?
Oh yes, because through the tax slab, change in the tax slabs, even a person who is having an income of more than 24 lakhs gets a tax benefit of 1,10,000. So across, for all income above 24 lakhs, the tax benefit is 1,10,000. So therefore, cutting across all the category of taxpayers, individual taxpayers, the tax benefit is there.
And regardless of all the exemptions in the old regime?
Yes. So now if you now compare it with the old regime, what does the old regime have? It is the exemptions and deductions. That is the benefit. Right? Now with 30%, that means that the deductions and exemptions would translate to about 3 lakhs or 3.5 lakhs. Right? So therefore the incentive to remain in the old tax regime largely is taken away. So the nudge is to move towards the new regime. And incidentally, till now 74% of the people have already on their own, they have found merit in shifting to the new regime. We feel that with this proposal in the budget, more people would actually want to adopt the new scheme. Yes.
Okay.
And talking about indirect tax and customs, Sanjay Agrawal, why don't you break it down for our viewers and explain to them what it means or what implications for the various stakeholders?
In this budget, a rate rationalization exercise has been carried out, which was announced by the Honorable FM in the July 2024 budget. And in that, we have gone through the entire gamut of the items which are considered as industrial goods. We kept out agricultural goods and the textiles from this exercise, or industrial goods with the objective that we keep on, we simplify the tax rate structure, we ensure that the Indian industry remain competitive, and then ensure that there is ease of doing business and enough protection is provided to specific sectors for a short duration. These were the objectives with this rate rationalization exercise has been carried out, and the higher rate of tax, which is say 25%, 30%, 35%, 40%, 100%, 125% and 150% on industrial goods. These rates have been eliminated, and now only 8 rates including the zero rate has been retained, and these rates are in a narrow band from 0% to 10%, and it is in a graded manner. We have imposed or applied the tax rate on a distinct stage of the value addition chain. So, on raw materials and minerals, we have kept that rate at 0 or 2.5%. After certain processing on the inputs, the intermediate goods which have come into existence, on that we have kept the rate at 5% or 7.5%. On capital goods, we have kept the rate of 7.5%, and finished goods it is 10%. And these rates have, in fact, most of the tariff lines are within these rates, and this has stabilized over last 17 years. So, this has remained largely untouched. On 15% and 20% rate, the items are generally which are covered under PLI or PMP scheme to promote Make in India. So, again the goods which are covered under PLI and PMP scheme and their raw materials we have not touched. On certain goods which are capped at these rates, because there was surge in imports of cheaper goods, to give such protection to industry, we have retained the rates on such items, but we have moved the rates which were higher than 20%, but lower than 70% to 20%. And the rates which were higher than 70% have been moved to 70%, but the effective incidence of duty has largely remained unchanged by imposition of AIDC cess, which is Agriculture and Infrastructure Development cess, on certain items where we felt that yes, rate duty incidence can be brought down. There the AIDC is marginally lower than the compensating rate.
So these changes that you brought in, Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, these have been brought in keeping a lot of factors in mind. Has the Trump factor also come in over here, that we're trying to be accommodative before Mr. Trump's tariff gaze turns towards India?
No, I think that is not the objective. The idea was what was announced in the last budget, and this was an overdue exercise, because there were certain rates which were very high, and these exceptions were there in existence for very long time, like this 100%, 125% or 150%. These rates are applicable to very few items, like this 125% and is applicable only to passenger cars. Similarly, 100% rate is applicable again to very few items, like to say baggage or maybe couple of more
Harley
items.
Davidsons.
150% is a rate which is applicable to only laboratory chemicals, only single item is there, other than which are agriculture goods, maybe alcohol. So these rates, there was no need to keep such high rates. So what has been done to bring them down to 70% and impose AIDC wherever required to provide protection to the Indian industry for the time being. But definitely in future we can look into those rates, wherever it can be brought down will be brought down. On certain rates like 30%, there were only 4 items.
And these change also depending on how we conduct our trade relations. If we have more FTAs with other countries or other unions, things could change further.
In fact, on these items which were there on 30% rate, the effective rate was already lower. So there was no need to keep this higher rate, because that otherwise gives a very bad optics. And by conducting this exercise, the average customs duty rate, which was earlier 11.65%, has now come down to 10.66%. So there is a substantial, almost 10% reduction in this average rate.
Yes.
Talking about that, income tax, Mr. Ravi Agarwal, I mean, Minister Sitharaman spoke about how a draft income tax bill can be expected as early as next week. She spoke about simplifying it, making it easier for the individual taxpayers. For the taxpayers watching this broadcast, what should they expect from this revamped or revised new bill that's going to be presented to the nation next week? Will it become easier for someone like me, say, to file my own IT returns on my own?
Yeah, so if you recall last July, Honorable Finance Minister had announced that we would work on a comprehensive review of the tax bill, tax act, and we would work towards simplification of the existing Income Tax Act 61. So we have, in the last 6 months, we have done that exercise, and the basic focus was to simplify the language of the act.
I see.
You see, let it be a simple active sentence which is easy to comprehend, smaller sentences that we may have, so that the normal taxpayer does not, there should not be any need to actually consult a tax expert in that sense. Because if the transaction is simple enough, one should be able to go through the act and find out what is the liability. And coupled with the fact that you have a new tax regime, so wherein the deductions and all those go, then it becomes simple exercise for the taxpayer to go about it. So a comprehensive exercise has been done, wherein the language has been simplified, the way it is being presented, the sections are being presented are, making it easier, user-friendly also. In the process, wherever the redundancies had cropped up, because it is a 1961 Act.
Yes.
So over a period of time, redundancies had crept in, so that has been removed. There were duplications or some obsolete sections were there which were actually forming part, making the Act bulky. So that has also been removed.
So focus shifts from justice and trust, from punishment to justice and trust. Is that how you?
So that is not, that is of course, that is the basic philosophy in which we are moving, and that is not confined to only this Act. Ultimately in this bill also, if you see that we have actually taken care of rationalization of tedious rates and decriminalization and penalties and all that thing. But essentially the idea is that if you make it simple, then and the clarity is there,
compliance
it becomes more the certainty, tax certainty, compliance improves, litigation reduces.
True.
Right?
Yeah,
So
compliance
these are
has
the
to improve
takeaways.
because you're foregoing tax as well. And on that note, I'm going to have to thank both of you because we're being told to wind up from our panel. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ravi Agarwal, Chairman CBDT, and Sanjay Kumar Agarwal, Chairman CBIC, to talk about the entire tax regime, both direct and indirect, and how things will then be taken forward as well as far as the new income tax bill is concerned, which will be tabled in Parliament perhaps next week. We'll take a quick break at this point and we'll be back with more guests to talk about the budget. It is a special that we are getting to you tonight on DD India. Stay with us.
Keep watching, don't go anywhere.
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
मेरा सेविंग्स अकाउंट ओपन हो गया और बैंक भी जाना नहीं पड़ा।
रियली? तू जानता है इसका बैंक कौन है?
कौन है सर?
SBI। ओपन डिजिटल सेविंग्स अकाउंट यूजिंग वीडियो KYC। इसे कहते हैं सॉलिड बैंक की सॉलिड बैकिंग।
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। लेकिन बिजनेस शुरू हो गया तो इन दोनों कौन संभालेगा?
मम्मी, तुम बिजनेस संभालो, रोहन को मैं संभाल लूंगी।
बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
जल्दी करो यार, प्लीज जल्दी।
दूसरा कोई मैच है क्या?
ऐसा ही कुछ है यार, बैंक जाना है दादाजी को लेके।
हाँ यार, उम्र होने पर कभी कभी मदद तो लगती है,
पर बैंकिंग में नहीं। वैसे भी RBI कहता है सीनियर सिटीजन सबसे पहले। अगर आप 70 साल से ऊपर हैं और आप बैंक नहीं जा सकते तो बैंक आएगा आपके पास जरूरी सेवाएं लेकर, वो भी वाजिब दरों पर।
सीनियर सबसे पहले। RBI कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
पर लोन लेने के लिए खुद का हैवी मार्जिन लगाना पड़ता है। 80% तक का बिजनेस लोन मिलेगा, हाँ? वो भी कोलैटरल फ्री। अच्छा, 5 करोड़ तक बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा संभाल लेगा। बड़ौदा महिला स्वावलंबन लोन, तो शुरू कीजिए अपना ड्रीम बिजनेस।
Timeless, boundless, and infinite. The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture. From the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic. World's largest cultural and spiritual gathering. with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
In today's episode, let's explore what can be done to start now to create this future that we all want to live in.
We started planting rare indigenous tree species in this area. We now have over 1,000 trees here, along with several medicinal plants.
Stream is cleaned. Mostly what they do is they cut all the plants on the edges of the river. Some plants will be dyed. That dyed will degrade that soil and it will erode. So the edges of the rivers will be getting eroded over the years.
Solar panels on the rooftops generate power that we feed back into the buildings, and we're including large green spaces to help reduce much of the excess heat.
I thought that if I write poems, no one will pay attention. So then why not write rap instead?
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget for 2025-26 in Parliament. While presenting the budget, the Finance Minister said that India's economy is the fastest growing among all the major economies in the world.
And she also said that the proposed budget measures focus on 10 broad areas. And this budget aims to take everyone along on an inclusive growth path. The FM added that this budget is dedicated to accelerating growth, driven by India's aspirations of being a developed nation. Let's now take a look at the other major highlights of the Union Budget.
Her white and red sari said it all. She meant business. This was her 8th budget. The Indian economy in flight was now cruising at around 7% as it surveyed the markets around it. She saw the opportunity to put money where it mattered, in sectors that needed a boost, where India could develop and sustain an edge, and also in the infrastructure that held the economy together. Her fuel, reforms. The guiding spirit, inclusivity, and the destination, Viksit Bharat. So this is what she did. More money in the hands of the middle class. No tax with total income up to 12 lakh rupees. More credit guarantee for small businesses, the backbone of exports. Additional credit of rupees 1.5 lakh crore in the next 5 years for MSMEs. New fund of funds with expanded scope and fresh contribution of another 10,000 crore rupees to be set up for startups. Support for leather footwear and products to facilitate 22 lakh jobs. Create turnover of 4 lakh crore rupees and exports of rupees 1.1 lakh crore. India Post to be transformed into a large public logistics organization to benefit new entrepreneurs, women, self-help groups, MSMEs and large business organizations. Gig workers of online platforms to get healthcare under PM Jan Arogya Yojana to help 1 crore workers. Rupees 1.5 lakh crore proposed for 50-year interest-free loans to states for capex. Asset monetization plan for 2025-30 to plough back capital of rupees 10 lakh crores in new projects. Regulatory and fiscal measures will be fine-tuned to support the plan. Extension of Jal Jeevan Mission until 2028 with enhanced total outlay. Urban Challenge Fund of rupees 1 lakh crore to implement cities for growth hubs, creative redevelopment of cities and water and sanitation challenges. Maritime Development Fund with corpus of 25,000 crore rupees to be set up. Special window for affordable and mid-income housing. Rupees 15,000 crore for another 1 lakh units. Private sector research, development and innovation initiative gets rupees 20,000 crores. FDI limit for insurance sector raised from 75 to 100%. A light touch regulatory framework to be put in place for ease of doing business. Total estimated expenditure rupees 50.65 lakh crores. Total estimated receipts other than borrowing rupees 34.96 lakh crores. Net tax receipts estimated at 28.37 lakh crore rupees. Fiscal deficit estimated at 4.4% of GDP.
Well, this was Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's record 8th consecutive union budget, which focused on 4 engines: agriculture, MSMEs, investment and exports to drive the goal of a Viksit Bharat or a developed India. The FM announced an allocation of 20,000 crore rupees to promote investing in innovation. A report on the new initiatives in this year's union budget.
Just as living beings live expecting rains, citizens live expecting good governance. These words of Tirukkural were spoken by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman as she presented the Union Budget 2025-26 in Parliament. She highlighted the middle class's strength for India's growth. Among the many new transformative reforms to augment India's growth potential, Nirmala Sitharaman announced, for the first time, no income tax will be payable up to an income of 12 lakh rupees. 2 crore rupee loans for 5 lakh women, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, first-time entrepreneurs for 5 years have been announced. The scheme will incorporate lessons from the successful Stand Up India scheme. 1 crore gig workers of online platforms will be recognized through registration on the e-Shram portal. 1 lakh crores have been allocated in the Urban Challenge Fund to implement cities as growth hubs, creative redevelopment of cities and water and sanitation. A Maritime Development Fund has also been set up wherein 25,000 crores will be given for distributed support and promoting competition. 20,000 crores have been allocated for research and development of small modular reactors, wherein at least 5 indigenously developed small modular reactors will be operationalized by 2033. Medical tourism and Heal in India will be promoted in PPP mode. 20,000 crores for private sector driven research and development and innovation have been proposed. A deep tech fund of funds has been given for next generation startups. The second gene bank with 10 lakh germplasm lines for future food and nutritional security conservation support will be given to both public and private sectors for maintaining their genetic resources. 500 crores have been allocated for 1 Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence for Education. 10,000 PM Research Fellowships will be given for the next 5 years for technological research in IITs and Indian Institute of Science. 50,000 Atal Tinkering Labs will be set up in government schools in the next 5 years. Digital form Indian language books for school and higher education will be provided under Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak scheme. In the Gyan Bharatam mission, a national digital repository of Indian knowledge systems will be provided for over 1 crore manuscripts. In agriculture, under Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, 100 districts will be covered and over 1.7 crore farmers would be benefited. Under the 5-year Mission for Cotton Productivity, improvements in sustainable cotton farming have been announced. A Makhana board in Bihar would be set up. Among the financial sector reforms, FDI limit in insurance sector has been raised from 74 to 100%. An investment friendliness index of states will be launched in 2025 to further the spirit of competitive cooperative federalism. And finally, under the digital public infrastructure, a Bharat Trade Net BTN will be set up for international trade transactions. Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
Presenting India's union budget, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman pegged the fiscal deficit target at 4.4% of GDP for the financial year 25-26. For 2024-25, the fiscal deficit target has been revised from 4.9% of gross domestic product to 4.8%. The budget also promises to continue government's efforts to accelerate growth, secure inclusive development, invigorate private sector investments, uplift household sentiments and enhance spending power of India's rising middle class. Here's a report.
In a bid to continue the Indian economy's journey on course of fiscal consolidation, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced a 50.65 lakh crore budget, the biggest in the history of India, with an aim to maintain economic growth and keep the fiscal deficit on the declining path.
Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. Our development track record for the past 10 years and structural reforms have drawn global attention. Confidence in India's capability and potential has only grown in this period. We see the next 5 years as a unique opportunity to realize Sabka Vikas, stimulating balanced growth of all regions.
As per the budget estimates 2025-26, the total receipts other than borrowings is pegged at rupees 34.96 lakh crore, and the total expenditure or the total size of the budget has been kept at rupees 50.65 lakh crore. The net tax receipts are estimated at rupees 28.37 lakh crore. The fiscal deficit target for 2025-26 is pegged to be at 4.4% of the GDP as compared to the previous year's figure of 4.8%. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at rupees 11.54 lakh crore. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at rupees 14.82 lakh crore. In order to maintain the growth momentum of the Indian economy, the capital expenditure or capex has been kept at around rupees 15.5 lakh crores, an upward revision from the previous year's figure of rupees 10.18 lakh crore. In the budget 2025-26, the sectors that have received the largest budgetary allocations are Defence 4.91 lakh crore, Rural Development rupees 2.66 lakh crore, Home Affairs 2.33 lakh crores, Agriculture rupees 1.71 lakh crore, Education rupees 1.28 lakh crore, Health rupees 98,000 crore, and Urban Development 96,000 crore.
In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, Youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy and innovation.
The budget 2025-26 has been crafted with a special focus on agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprises or MSMEs, an investment-friendly environment and a major thrust on export-oriented economy, which will be fueled by reforms guided by the spirit of inclusivity with a clear target of mission Viksit Bharat or Developed India. Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
So those were the broad strokes of the budget this time around, the Union Budget 2025-26. And to talk about it further with us, we have with us Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, DGRIS for developing countries, a well-known economist, and Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi also joins us. He's Vice Chancellor at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Good evening to you both. First to you, Dr. Chaturvedi. What do you make of the budget in the context of its larger goal of ensuring that India keeps growing and returns to that path of high growth rate that will take it to that goal of being a developed nation by 2047, also keeping in mind that this time around the middle class has been a bit of a beneficiary as far as relief is concerned, and that is expected to boost consumption, boost demand in the economy and help our industries in general?
That's right, Gautam. If you look at the budget today, there are four broad areas which are cross-cutting and have been identified by Finance Minister for priority setting, not for 1 year or two, but for another 20 years that India today has embarked on. And that's why this budget is largely being described as historic and monumental in terms of how we provide impetus in terms of the energy transition, the idea of looking into nuclear option and thinking of smaller plants which are going to transform the energy scenario, particularly for 2030 agenda and also for 2070 net zero commitment. So from that perspective, it's a long-term budget and very specific policy initiatives have been launched. The second and very important dimension is to leverage strength of oceans. And there the idea of blue economy, the idea of focusing on shipbuilding, ship repair and maritime security that has been emphasized. The third, which is a cross-cutting and is present across all the sectors that FM today mentioned, is about science, technology, innovation. You look at agriculture, 4 major missions have been launched. You look at MSME and the large industrial plant revival that in Assam has been proposed. Again, science and technology is playing an important role. The idea of broad-basing development within STI, 10,000 additional scholarships that have been provided with the Prime Minister's research fellows at IIT and at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. They provide emphasis. And fourth and last is largely in terms of looking into the way external connect of budget is coming in, where all the three areas, the trade, so the export trade mission, the idea of bringing in rationalization in the tariff structure and FDI. So you find a large sum of initiatives, Gautam, that have been launched.
Okay.
Professor Joshi, now that there's a broad understanding of the philosophy or guiding principle behind this budget, was there anything in particular that caught your attention that was in the budget?
I think this budget is coming at a time wherever the country and the entire world is in a very, very challenging situation. The people have so far been the big economists. In my age, I have been taught of globalization, reduction of tariffs, and all the trade theories have talked of free trade is good. Free trade prior to World War II was a bad word in Europe. Free trade in America was always a bad word. And now in the whole of the Europe, the protectionistic restrictions are taking place. And if you see the more and more European country, you talk of Germany, you talk of France, you talk of UK, they are getting more protectionistic. But what is key about this particular timing of the budget is when in United States the new president Donald Trump has come, he has not minced his words in telling that America first and the India is a tariff king. The only word Donald Trump says he loves is the tariff. He says he has to protect his country by tariffs, bringing more jobs and, bringing more manufacturing. When India was using to talk, our Prime Minister used to talk Modi ji about Swadeshi. People said India is getting protectionistic. Now nobody is saying that America has got protectionistic. The entire framework of multilateral trading system in which the WTO came into the existence, the framework was one country, one tariff. The framework was basically reduction of tariffs. Tariffs have been reduced very substantially across the world over the last 30-40 years. Tariffs have been reduced even after WTO. But now, very recently, a few weeks back, the day I think that Donald Trump, took on the power, he said that he will have a universal 10 to 20% tariff. Now, who is affected most? The European countries.
The Americans will be affected the most.
They are affected the most. And the tariff is going the 25% on Mexico, 25% on Canada because you have more trade deficit. He said with China we have got much more trade deficit, 65% on them. Anybody who favors China and de-dollarization, 100%. And therefore very recently in the name of BRICS, I think India's name was also taken, in imposing the higher tariff. So I think under this circumstance, now one is anyway, it is time which will tell us whether.
But do you think, Professor Joshi, that in the budget, India has already taken account of what Donald Trump has been threatening?
Absolutely, absolutely. In this budget, it's a very holistic in nature. And what has been, I think between the lines, if you read it, it is probably the first time wherein among the key engagement, the exports has come. It is probably the first time when MSME has been come, agriculture has come, and investment has been come. It's very, very holistic, well thought of, and strategies rather than, having some, tariff concession or.
And India has overall lowered its tariff by about 10%, hasn't it?
And more importantly is, we have also under this budget, some attempt has been made to address the inverse duty structure, wherein, more duties were being charged on the raw material and less duties on the finished product, which was impacting manufacturing. Now you take example of fisheries, wherein which has been the input which is required for fishery cultivation, those inputs, the tariffs have been reduced. You see the inputs for the leather industry, the tariff is reduced. So it's a very, very holistic. More importantly is, we have talked about the export promotion mission. So I think I'm very sure that Department of Commerce is responsible for export promotion, but probably I think it's a very thought of, where it is thought that, the two ministries, I'm sure that, like all of us work in silos, ministries do work in silos. And therefore MSME, Ministry of Finance, Department of Commerce, each has got a role to play. They come together under this mission, and more importantly is what this budget is talking of, the trade net or the Bharat net kind of a thing we are in, the documentation, the information, the domestic. So we are leveraging on technology in export facilitation, and like you have got a Digi Locker or a Digi Yatra kind of a system, the logistics kind. So we are going to integrate that, and I think it is going to be a great facilitation to the exporters, and the exporters and the entire country will realize the benefit of this, I think, sooner than we think.
Professor Chaturvedi, I have a twofold question for you. One, to borrow what from Professor Joshi mentioning, do you see a Trump imprint or effect on the budget per se, number one? Number two, from an RIS perspective, what do you make of the focus on making the bilateral investment treaties more investor friendly?
Absolutely brilliant questions. Let me take up the BIT first. For quite some time, several of our partner countries have been complaining about the model that we have adopted for BIT. So I think FM was there when she announced that it would be reviewed, and it would be thoroughly reviewed. We haven't moved forward an inch in terms of how the new BIT should look like. So I think mentioning that in the budget speech and giving a direction in terms of what we exactly need in terms of bilateral investment treaty, the road is now set, the targets are clear, and I think these guardrails that she suggested in the paragraphs, which are just one above and one below, they provide the direction for us to go forward on BIT. So we need to strengthen that. Globally, you are seeing a trend where, unlike earlier where you used to go for FTAs, the free trade agreements, and now you go for investment agreements with trade as just one small component. So investment is more heavier than trade now. So you find that direction going. The Trump footprint, as Professor Joshi rightly pointed out, is very much there, but it is a different kind of response, I would say. There are three things in which you can even if you juxtapose Trump over budget, you can see three very clear distinctions. First and foremost, India has opened up. Whether you take up the FDI, whether you take up the tariff rationalization, Finance Minister hasn't gone for protectionism. Finance Minister has gone for
100% FDI and insurance is a major step.
Is a big step, 74 to 100% in FDI and insurance sector. You also find tariff rationalization. And third is, of course, to promote BIT, which we were just discussing. So you find these deviations which are there, which do not bring in our response in any way to copy what is happening in the US.
And Professor Joshi, again in response to what has been happening with Donald Trump coming into the White House a second time, do you feel that apart from what has been done in the budget, it would be a time that would be right to strike when the iron is hot and push for at least, if not a full FTA with the US, but at least a limited one?
I think it's a very complex question that you are asking. Professor Chaturvedi was talking about the BIT. You see, India has been very innovative in signing in FTA, which we have signed, wherein we have, committed them to invest $100 billion in India in the next 5 years. So I think these kind of things are likely to come, and I am very sure, Gautamji, what you are saying is something of that wherein, investment commitment can be taken from US. But, US is interested in the things like agriculture product. If you see, the Washington apples are available, every, town and village of this country. 80-90% of the almond are imported.
Yeah, but most
in
people
India
can't
from,
afford them.
India. So we cannot open that. Dairy is a sector, dairy and agriculture are the sector in which America is pressing. America is pressing, certain sectors in which I think we are unwilling to open up. And this is what I think we made it very clear to the European Union. In case you force us for dairying, I think we cannot go for FTA. So those kind of that sensitivities is there, but I am very sure it is a time, because US is also feeling isolated in the whole world. India, it's a great time for India to capitalize the challenges in the global economy, wherein the relations between United States of America, its close partners which were part of the NAFTA earlier, which was changed later in the Donald Trump's period earlier, with Canada and Mexico, and if that and China is another big opportunity which India can have, opportunity both in investment, opportunity both in trade, opportunity in supplying or being a supplier of the ancillary products to China. And I think India also need to find out a strategy wherein, say, large scale manufacturing. I am very sure that in a few years this space will be vacated by China. Human intensive manufacturing in India, I think there is still a scope. Integrating the technology, which I think we are trying in various things, and I am very sure that time is right, that you should strike when the iron is ripe and hot. So I think it's a very appropriate time to keep it. And India is already working. I think if you know the functioning of the government is working, I think, very deeply analyzing each and every product, each commodity products market, that after coming Trump, what has to be our trade strategy. And I am very sure that, with these inputs, very strong inputs, when the Prime Minister visits United States, some sort of understanding or agreement, I think we can initiate for that.
Right. Okay. Professor Chaturvedi, besides maritime and shipping, for instance, which you discussed earlier on in your intervention, another issue which of interest to many of the viewers watching this broadcast, especially to hear from you, would be science and technology and innovation. What did you make of the emphasis on setting up a center of excellence for AI in particular, or generally a consensus or a thrust to harness resources, public-private partnership, human capital, skilling, semiconductors, all coming to fruition so that India can take on the powers that be in this particular domain?
Absolutely right, and I think very relevant and very timely move now to connect AI with education. So the budgetary allocation that has been announced for setting up of AI center, specialized center of excellence, is in the realm of education sector. You also find mention of expanding the base of Atal Tinkering Lab to several schools. The idea is also in terms of how do we leverage science, technology and innovation for multiple sectors and multiple tasks that have been identified with specific ministries. One important point that you would see here, which is very interesting, is in terms of defining goals of various ministries and then their monitoring. As of now, you have been encouraging various ministries to leverage STI and go forward. Hasn't happened to that extent. So monitoring has also been mentioned in a very clear way. The idea of interministerial committees which have come up, like for instance, mention was made of Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce and MSME coming together, all three coming together. This coming together is also important in terms of how the cost-effective technology is made available to them. You also find mention in terms of agriculture sector where science technology has been given a push and identified. So if you look at the front runners in technology, be that in form of accessing AI, but also if you look at the technologies which are needed at level of startups and small enterprises, provision has also been made. You also find that these sectors require far more hand-holding in terms of how you bring in what last budget announced in terms of providing a huge sum of money for R&D in the private sector.
And there was talk of under funds for deep tech as well.
Exactly. So if you look at the operationalization of the last budget's mandate in terms of setting up of the R&D labs in the private sector, you find this time the road is coming in. The idea is also very clear in terms of what kind of private sector consortiums can be encouraged for participation. So this part I think is extremely important, that we are trying to see that the growth is based on innovation, growth is based on partnership, and adequate resources are made available from the government in terms of taking that forward. It is also very clear in terms of how semiconductor has also been provided support with the government's.
And let me again come back to Professor Joshi with the question of trade. Professor Joshi, you talked about the Trump factor and how that might trigger a cascading or an effect, a domino effect on the issue of protectionism versus globalization, and that tariffs might go up all around. In that case, do you feel that the budget has created scope for where our exports need to be diversified further, our markets need to be, export markets need to be diversified further? Do you think that is something that has been accounted for in this budget?
Yes,
just to offset this this tariff war that might be, at our doorstep.
No, very right, very right. One is that if you see that, we are analyzing what are our products which are going to America, we are also focusing on the services export. The budget basically talks of, creating capacity for the global capacity building centers, global capacity centers in the tier 2 cities. So it is leveraging the services exports based on the, technology and that integration of the technology. This is one. And if you look into, even in the manufacturing export, when we talk of diversifying the export, we are focusing on, domestically manufacturing, export oriented manufacturing. And I think what has been, going to be the game changer is a special focus on MSMEs. Now these MSMEs especially, we are also diversifying, we have got a policy of, the Look East India policy, we are diversifying into the new market. And based on that, this thing has come. Now if you look into, the whatever has come is, the information system that BharatNet we are going to create is facilitate our export and help exporters, at the lowest level in the district center or wherever they are located to identify new markets, identify new product and facilitating them. So our dependence on, on one market or especially is reduced. But please try to understand that America, it will take time that our product become very uncompetitive in the American market, because if America imposes 65% tariff or more tariff on China, if America imposes 25 tariff on that, so I think if I am very hypothetically, if America imposes 10% tariff on India, so our product comparatively to other is going to be more competitive. But more than that, it gives investment opportunity to India from other countries. So only thing is we need to be prepared, and this budget takes care of it. In the infrastructure development, getting it prepared, and investment as a key area of focus in the entire budget today.
Professor Joshi, just a quick question talking about foreign trade and exports. So what did you make of the emphasis or accent on ease of doing business in India, and how do you see the attempt in the budget to reduce regulations for foreign investments as well?
Look at two things. One is states have been asked to do some competitiveness index also. So ultimately, the government of India makes the policy, but I think these things are the actual exports are being made, by the state, and the state has got a lot of role to play in agriculture, in land, in labor, all that. So those things have been given here, and so that will make our exports competitive in the international market. This is what I think.
All right, wonderful. Well, let's also tell our viewers about what other reforms are in the pipeline as far as the budget is concerned once the proposal passed. Well, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman underlined that this budget aims to basically take the thrust to 6 different sectors, and let's see what these sectors are.
Urban development, mining.
The budget proposals by Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will usher in a string of reforms in various sectors. This development will have a cascading domino effect on the overall economy, as the reforms will spur the growth in specific areas and act as a catalyst for the remaining sectors.
This budget aims to initiate transformative reforms across 6 domains. During the first 5 years, these will augment our growth potential and global competitiveness.
The most people-friendly part of the speech was, in fact, the announcement of a new income tax bill which will be brought in next week, reaffirming government's commitment of trust first, scrutinize later. The new income slabs are also sure to bring in loud cheer from all sections of the society. Government will forego at least 1 lakh crore in direct taxes as a result of new liberal direct tax proposals.
The new structure will substantially reduce the taxes of the middle class and leave more money in their hands, boosting household consumption, savings and investment.
Government has announced a light touch regulatory framework for enhanced productivity and employment.
A light touch regulatory framework based on principles and trust will unleash productivity and employment. Through this framework, we will update regulations that were made under old laws.
This feature will entail a new high-level committee on regulatory reforms which will submit recommendations within a year, launch of an investment friendliness index for states, FSDC mechanism, and Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0 to further decriminalize 100 more provisions in various laws. Financial sector reforms have also been identified. An important development will be allowing 100% FDI in the insurance sector. Further, company mergers will be streamlined and rationalized. A forum for development of pension products is also in offing. Power remains an important enabler for industry and homes alike. It plays an important part in any economy's surge northwards. Many important reforms have been promised in the power sector, with the finance minister identifying incentives in distribution sector and ushering in partnership with private sector in the critical area of nuclear energy.
For an active partnership with the private sector towards this goal, amendments to the Atomic Energy Act and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act will be taken up.
A state mining index is also among the major reform initiatives taken for the mining sector, which has the benefit of being labor intensive as well as having a domino effect on related areas. Last but not the least, government will also incentivize reforms related to the urban sector. Cumulatively, these steps on reforms in various sectors will go a long way in enhancing ease of doing business, boosting purchasing power of the common man, and providing further fillip for the economic growth of the nation. Ravi Dhiman for DD India.
In an exclusive interview to DD India, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman explained the zero tax payable up to income of rupees 12 lakhs in the new tax regime announced during the Union Budget 2025.
The rates are far lesser than the rates which are prevailing as of today. So one with the simplification, rate reduction, and also a smooth flow of rate without any jumps, and higher incomes also coming into the lower slab. So the benefit of this income tax reduction that we've done are not just in saying up to a certain income you will pay no tax, but across the board for all incomes the rate is brought down.
Yes.
Up to 12 lakh, not only has the rate come down, But we are saying whatever is the tax incidence falling on the individual will be rebated out so that they don't have to pay any tax.
And in the same interview, the Finance Minister also highlighted key policy changes to support MSMEs and the leather industry.
I have reduced the duty, import duty on certain critical minerals because they are very important for us, particularly for the MSMEs, for improving on their manufacturing capabilities. Similarly, for leather, we've also tweaked the import duty and export duty for some other items so that some valued raw material can go from India out so that small tanners can benefit from it.
Further emphasizing the crucial role of postmen and dak sevaks in rural India, the minister highlighted the government's vision to revive India Post and transform it into a key nerve center for the country's growth.
The local postman or the dak sevak used to be the first one people saw as a representative of government. So we want to revive that connect that India Post has with the people and make them also one of the nerve centers for India's growth. Moreover, we want them to also take up the logistics function because many global marketing companies today and retailers today want network all over the country.
And the FM also thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for making this budget friendly for honest taxpayers of the country.
मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूँ इसमें उनके गाइडेंस था कि टैक्स फोरगॉन के कैलकुलेशन से हट करके जनता के हाथ में वापस कितना पैसा क्योंकि ये लोग कौन है ये टैक्स पेयर्स है उनके लिए राहत देने के लिए प्रधानमंत्री जी का एक सुझाव था कि आप कुछ ऐसे कैलकुलेशन करो कि टैक्स पेयर ऑनेस्ट टैक्स पेयर से पे कर रहे हैं उनको क्या हम दे पाएंगे.
Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, in an exclusive interaction with the national broadcaster, stressed that the focus on infrastructure development, taxation and fiscal deficit target of 4.4 will ensure growth. He gave the budget a 10 on 10 for its bold approach with its focus on growth and innovation.
10 on 10, absolutely great budget, amazing budget. Managing fiscal deficit, managing the capex investment, getting the facilities for our middle class families, making sure that the poor families they get their due, making sure that the farmers are able to grow, making sure that employment opportunities come in, making sure that the innovation ecosystem is supported. Amazing. Making sure that the MSMEs are supported. It's a phenomenal budget. It's a dream budget.
So, dream budget is how the Union Minister has described it. We're coming to the last few minutes of the show now, and if I could again come to you, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. All in all, if you consider the budget, do you think it is sufficient enough or more than enough to take India through navigating these choppy waters that we find ourselves in this international situation, where on one hand you have the threat of tariffs going up, protectionism rising, and also economy slowing down, particularly in Europe, which is one of our strongest trading partners.
Absolutely right, Gautam. If you see the budget, as we discussed in the earlier segment of this program today, the budget has insulated the spillover effects of the global recessionary tendencies, the global protectionist responses. Yesterday's economic survey laid out the roadmap for bold reforms, and today we find that FM has actually walked the talk, and she has really ensured how in the days to come we are going to go forward with multiple responses to cope up with the recession in Germany for the fourth consecutive quarter. We find France grappling with 1.2% growth rate. So you are seeing the challenges across, you are seeing the challenges particularly where our export destinations are. But as was mentioned earlier, with APTA we are trying to diversify. Economic survey in its chapter 3 also explains how this diversification of the market is happening, what kind of new investment regimes we are ending up with, and how domestic demand-led economic growth strategy is being played out.
And domestically also, one can expect the RBI to now finally lower rates?
Actually, if you see, today we had discussions and just on another Doordarshan outlet, our secretary was speaking, and DA secretary, and issue came up whether time has come for reducing rate of interest. And I think it's an interesting debate now whether time has really gone, and we are seeing the repo and other operations coming in to make the liquidity available and cost effective access to credit.
Professor Joshi, you get the last word on the show. Why don't you put the text of the budget in its proper context for our viewers?
I think it's a very holistic budget.
Okay.
It's a very wise decision has been taken as far as the income tax relief to the middle class is concerned. I think middle class is simply extremely happy now about whatever the relief has come. At least the finance minister has said herself, what you have showed is that trusting the middle class and facilitating the system. 12 lakh is a limit where I think majority of the people will feel very happy. The budget also takes care of the entrepreneurship development, the development of MSMEs, while leveraging upon the technology, and which we talk of the global capacity building centers. It also takes care of the financial constraint of the government, GDP rate, rising inflation in the European market, rising inflation in the American market, and then protectionistic measure across the world, difficult situation with China and America. So in all these things, the collation of the information and a united approach by state governments, by different departments, and creating the export getting together export promotion commission, I think, wherein I think a budget of 22,250 crore has been kept, which is a very substantial budget. So I'm very sure the government is very serious about it, and it is taking into the consideration of the international clues, has had a perfectly efficient strategy. And infrastructure also, I am very sure that whatever the capex has been done, but in the next year the government has talked about promised about a very good capex.
Yes, certainly.
Despite of
that is something that will be persevered with even further, and let's hope that this budget helps us go forth further in our goal to make a developed nation by 2047, no matter what the challenges might be coming up along the way. We'll see how things play out. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it, the union budget for 2025-26. Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, who was in our studio, and Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour, and well, we will keep you updated on what is to follow next as well, as far as the tariff trails are concerned. For Donald Trump, they're coming in for Mexico and for Canada as well as China. We'll see what comes next.
You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen now to download it.
And we'll always be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, with me, Ramesh Ramachandran, my colleague, and from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
Thank you.